The edition of Sefer HaTishbi that I have has a pirush on the side of it that's called Raglei Mavasa. This pirush, Raglei Mavasa, was written by a 19th century Goyen. His name was Rebbe Eliyahu Hershtig. He must have been Chassidish, because I see he had Askama from the Havas Yisrael, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, and he had Askama from different Chassidish Rebbes. But Al Kapanim, he wrote a pirush on the Sefer HaTishbi. And on Veshet, he says as follows: HaVeshet nikra b'loshen Ashkenaz Speiser. The hakana, and the kana is called luft, right? The esophagus is the speis, that's where the food goes. And the kana is attached to the lungs, that's the luft, that's where you breathe. And then he says as follows. He says that, I was asked the shaila by a yid whose name was Rabbi Yamin Ullman. Now this Rabbi Yamin Ullman was the son of the Baal Yeriah Shloima, who was a very famous Goyen in the mid-19th century. He was the Rav of Makava. This tshuva is between him and the Chassam Sofer, specifically on the topic of Rameir Balanes. Is a famous tshuva from the Chassam Sofer. The person he's talking to, Kupas Rameir Balanes, is the Baal Yeriah Shloima. It's the Av Bezdin of Makava. But either way, so this Yid Raglei Mavasa said that I was asked a question from Rabbi Yamin Ullman. He said that when he was younger, he was learning in Prishbarg. And he said he had a Rebbe, his name was Rab Nuta Wolf. The Gadol mi Rabban Shmoi says, you have no idea how big my Rebbe was. He was a baki b'shas u'poiskim. And he says, one time he came over to me. And he said, he came over to me and he asked me, he said, why is it that we refer to the kana and the veshet as simonim? What does a simon have to do with anything? He says, I tried so hard to find the reason. Why? What's it to do with simon? What's it to do with simon? I was yogati v'loy matzasni. I couldn't come up with any reason. So he said that he reached out to me. This is the Raglei Mavasa talking. So Rabbi Yamin Ullman sends me a letter, and he tells me, my Rebbe, Rab Nuta Wolf, he asked me, do I have any pshat of why the kana and the veshet are called simonim? Maybe you can help me. I would love to go back to my Rebbe and tell him. He says, do you have episode pshat? So this year, Rebbe Eliezer Hershtig, he tells him, this is what I told him back. He says, you find that the Indian of Shchita is there's a reason that's brought down that the reason we do shchita by the kana and the veshet is because that's where the dama nefesh is, and you want the dama nefesh to come out. In fact, a person or an animal is not considered dead until the dama nefesh comes out. So he says it comes out that if you see a corpse and you want to know if it's alive or dead, if you see that the kana and the veshet are severed, that means that the dama nefesh left the body. It's a simon that he's dead. And if not, it's a simon that he's alive. So it serves as a simon on the chiyas of the person, whether or not the person is alive or whether or not he's not alive. Then he writes, I don't know who he's referring to, but the Baal Raglei Mavasa says he asked his Rebbe, and his Rebbe told him a different shot. He told him because the halacha is that if you shecht the kana and the veshet, even if the animal is still alive, it's mefarcheses, right? At that point, the halacha is that the shchita is going to be considered a shchita. So the severing of the kana and the veshet is a sign. It's a sign that there was a shchita and that it's kosher. And that's why it's called a semen. Hamura mehanal. The olam was mutching. Rabbi Yamin Ullman, the son of the Baal Yeriah Shloima, Rabbi Eliezer Hershtig, Rabbi Nuta Wolf, the Baal Raglei Mavasa, Rabbi Eliezer Hershtig, his Rebbe. Nobody can figure out why is it called Simon. He said even this Yid, Rabbi Nuta Wolf, who seems like he was a baki b'chol chedrei Torah, cannot figure out what is the simon. What's the simon have to do with anything? You have to. It's two avarim, right? That's what it is. It's not simonim. What's pashup shat? So I don't know, but it seems like everyone's trying to say episa vart, episa hergers. So maybe lule the mistafino we can say. We mentioned on Daf Beis we spoke a little bit about the Machlokes Rishonim. We actually mentioned this yesterday again, and that is whether or not Shchitas Chulin is a mitzvah, Shchitas Chulin is not a mitzvah. There's some Rishonim, Uberoshim, the Rambam, and the Chinuch who hold that Shchitas Chulin is a mitzvah. There are other Rishonim, Uberoshim, the Ravid, and the Ramban, that hold that Shchitas Chulin is not a mitzvah. And the kasha is, if you hold that Shchitas Chulin is not a mitzvah, so then what's Pasha Pshat? Why is it then that you make a bracha, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu ala shchita? If it's a mitzvah, it's a brachas mitzvahs. But if it's not a mitzvah, then why are you going ahead and you're making a bracha? And we said that the Ramban is Pirush ala Torah. We spoke so much about this yesterday. Says it's related to Tzar Bal Chaim Dairaisa and L'Shoimei Azov Shalmar Nachsam Sofer and Erechaim Simen Nundal at the very, very end of the tshuva, where he said it's Keilu Noimar Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu l'rachim ala brias. But we said, and that is the Iker Vart that we said is really a Mefurish Taz in Siman Aleph Yeridea. But we said based on the Rosh, who says in the Sugya of Birchas Erusin and Birchas Chasanim in the first parak of Masechtas Ksubas, that with regards to the bracha that's made under the chuppah, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu, and what's the bracha that we make? V'tzivanu ala arayos, v'asalanu as arusais, v'hitalanu as anesuais, lanu al yedei chuppah v'kedushin, baruch atah Hashem v'kadosh am Yisrael, al yedei chuppah v'kedushin. But as relates to that bracha, said the Rosh, even though you've asked the man on the street, he'll probably tell you it's a brachas mitzvahs, but lo'olam it's not a brachas mitzvahs, it's a brachas Hashem. The Rosh asks all his famous kashas, and the Rosh says, you want to know what the bracha is? U'bracha zu niskin alosei shevach la'kadosh baruch hu, asher kedishanu b'mitzvoisav, v'hivdilanu min ha'amim, v'tzivanu l'kadosh isha muteres that if a person goes ahead and a person is mekadosh al yidei chuppah v'kedushin, he's showing the kedusha of Klal Yisrael. But at the same time, it's being done with an incredible tznius, and that shows the havdalah between Klal Yisrael and between the Amim, and that's why we make a bracha, not a brachas hamitzvahs, but it's a bracha Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysa v'hivdilanu min ha'amim. That's what the bracha is. So we shtel to, and again, emes, it's really a taz, but this is the beer in the taz, and that is that the pasuk says in the parashas Kedushin, v'hivdaltem ben ha'mehema tahir latmeya ubein ha'oif ha'tamei latar v'lo yiseshaktu es nafshay seichem ba'behemu u'ba'oif u'b'chol asher tirmais ha'adama asher v'dalti lechem l'tamei. The pasuk says you have to be mavdul between the behema tahira and the behema tmeya. Rashi says, what does it mean be mavdul between the behema tahira and the behema tmeya? Ein tzarich loyme bein parah lechamar sharei muvdalim v'nikarim heim. Ela bein Torah l'chol etmeilach, bein shenishchat rubai shel simin lenishchat chetziai, v'kama bein rubai lechetziai meloi saira. And the Torah says you have a chiyuv to be mavdil bein a behema Torah and a behemat tmeya. Ubein ha'oif ha'tamei latar. And what does that mean? Zok the Heilige Rashi. It means you have to do shchita, you have to learn chulin. The next pasuk, if you're going to do that, V'yisem li kedoshim, ki kadosh ani Hashem, v'avdel eschem min ha'amim li oisli. If you're going to be mavdel between the behema, hatmeya, and the Torah, and the oif ha'tamei v'atar, v'avdel eschem min ha'amim li oisli. Zok Rashi, im atem uvdolim mehem, harei atem shali. V'im lav, and Rashi says something very mysterious, atem shal Nebuchadnezzar v'chavera. Not sure what that means, but we don't have anything to do with that. So the bottom line is, Zok Rashi, you know what the pasuk is saying? That if you're mavdel ben a behema Torah latmeya, ubein ha'oif Tomei Latar, then va'avdel eschem and amim liyoisli, ve'yisam li kedoshim ki kodesh ani. The Rosh was mechadish that you make a birchas hashevach when you see the havdalah bein Yisrael ha'amim. You see it under the chuppah, mekadesh am Yisrael ha'idei chuppah v'kedushin. You know where else you see it? You see it by machalas asuras. When a yid goes and he's shecht, and he knows to be mavdel bein nishchat rubai shal simen echel and nishchat chetzioi, v'kama bein rubai l'chetzioi. When he goes through the sugyas that we're learning, he does a lamaisa again. It's screaming va'avdel eschem and this is the Havdalah ben Yisrael la'amim. And if that's Havdalah Yisrael la'amim, that fathers a bracha. You know a bracha? Not a brachas mitzvahs. Lodas. Harayvet v'Ramban. It's a birchas hashevach. It's the birchas hashevach of the Rosh. It's the birchas hashevach asher kedishanu b'mitzvoisav v'hivdilanu min ha'amim. We said the Chassam Sofer said it's keilu noimar asher kedishanu b'mitzvoisav v'tzivanu l'rachim al abriyos. Lulei de mistafino. It's keilu noimar asher kedishanu b'mitzvoisav. But here's the point: the inyan of machalis asuros and the inyan of bein nishchat rubai shel simel and nishchat chetzioi v'kama bein rubai lechetzi meloi asayri. This inyan is something that shows the havdalah bein Yisrael la'amim. Not all mitzvahs were created equally. Different mitzvahs have a different matara. Different mitzvahs have a different person, a different purpose. Some mitzvahs are, we're just showing we're doing the Ratzon Hashem. Take a mitzvah like Mila. Mila is an ois bris kodesh. It's an ois. It's a siman. It's a sign that we're Jews. It's a siman that we're different. The inyan of Mila is to have an insignia in the goof of the person as ich ben an anderer mensch. The parsha of Machalas Asur is not just a parsha in the Torah, right? People very often will ask. I know I've been asked many times in a secular setting. Explain to me kosher, non-kosher. I just don't understand. It doesn't make any sense, right? What's this all about? That's the real answer. I don't know if you want to say that, but that's the real answer. It's because when a yid keeps kosher, that's a siman that he's a yid. That advises it's an oispris kodesh. And the emes you find that when it comes to machalas asuras, Chazal say there's a timtum alev, v'nitmeisem al tikri v'nitmeisem ele v'nitamtem. And like we spoke after the Mesilas Yesharim in Perek Yud Aleph, and that's the beer in Shittas Rabbeinu Tam that hashta v'hemta tzadikim ena kodesh baruch hu mevit hakol hayon tzikim atzim like kolshkin. It's dafka by Machalas Asuras, and like the Sfar Makdoshim HaMazber, it's because when a person eats something he's not supposed to eat, it makes the shinoi in the guf. It's mitamtim the leif. Right, think about this. Bris Mila is Mila Saguf, which is supposed to circumcise really the heart of the person, right? It's supposed to that's what happens when you do bris milah. If a person doesn't do bris milah, he can't properly understand Torah. Right? That's Reb Kivega's famous chiddush, who says that if you don't have a father to do the bris milah, the zayda has to. He says why? Because the zayda has a chiv to teach his grandson Torah, and on bris milah you can't understand Torah because on bris milah bist du verstoppt, and the ois bris kodesh on the guf is a symbol of an ois bris kodesh in the hearts from the yid. And when a person goes and a person is a mohel, so now he has a leiv poiseach, he's able to understand Torah. The parsha Machalas Asuras is mamish operating in that world. That's where it's operating. It's an inyan of Abdul Eschem and Amim Liyosli. It's an oispris kodesh. And you know what happens if you violate that? You end up with Timtum Alev. You end up not being able to understand Torah. Like the Mesilas Yesharim says, that Ruach Chochmah that comes from the Eibishter, all of a sudden those tzinoiris, the static, and all of a sudden you don't have the base kibble, and all of a sudden it's not able to penetrate your heart. You're not able to understand Torah. And that's why the tzaddikim get shmira from this inyan. Because this is not an Avera B'shoigig. This is something that's undermining the whole Havdalah Ben Yisrael Am and the whole Kedush of Klal Yisrael, the ability to be able to comprehend Torah. But the bottom line is, maybe, again, this is just the hergish, in the world and in the realm of if the inyan of Machalas Asuras is va'avdal eschem min ha'amim liyos li, that means that really, at the end of the day, the parsha Machalas Asuras, the difference between a basar shchuta and a basar nevela is going to make the difference on whether or not you see a yid or whether you see someone that is not able to be masig what a yid is supposed to be able to be masig b'kedushas Yisrael. The kana and the veshet are simonim, because through the kana and the veshet is the asimin as doshtet ayid. Das is a yid ki me Hashem iten chachma mi pivdas usfuna, who's able to be masig. The parsha of shchita is the havdalah ben Yisrael la'am. Hence, the kana and the veshet are signs, they're oisos of the differentiation and that havdalah between Yisrael Amim. And if that's the case, then not just two Eivarim. These are two Eivarim where the siman of the Yid versus Nish the Yid is tali. These are Eivarim shechayi nefesh Yisrael tluyim bahem. And maybe it's for that reason in the world of Drush and Agada we refer to the kana and the veshet as simanim.